So, hello, welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics podcast. And today we're going to talk about something very special. We are actually talking about something that I'm very good at. Just before, to give you a little bit of context, because I often feel like, even though it is something that's quite unnecessary and quite unusual to say or point out, I point out why I'm recording this episode. And I have always kind of treated my episodes in that way, to just communicate okay, these are my thoughts about this and that and whatnot. I do believe that in some case and to some degree, this can really help some people. But yeah, I'm recording this because I think that the topic that I'm going to talk about is something that I'm relatively good at, and I have done it for quite some time and I know some things. And it is about frugality or frugality. I think it is frugality. So just being a cheap ass motherfucker. This is what we're going to talk about because I have my whole life long, I've been a very fragile person when it came to spending money. Up to this point, I just don't like spending money unless it is about food, unless it is about some things that I just absolutely need. When it is about and in the past few days and the past few weeks, I've done a better job at spending money. It's just been 99.9% for food. I've also bought myself some shoes because I needed some because I was pissed off. But in general, I'm very fragile when it comes to spending money. And so I've figured out just some ways how I can be as cheap as fucking possible, but still getting what I actually need. Because I am quite into bodybuilding. Well, let's say eating healthy and building some muscle and just staying as lean as I possibly can, which includes not eating any grains but oats actually and barley, but also that relatively seldomly. And so no bread, no whatever. And I don't know, I figured out some ways how to just really be cheap with what you eat. And so one of the first few things that I want to point out is canned goods. Every day I'm eating something canned. Most often it is beans or lentils just because of the protein content they're having, which, it is amazing if you're eating one can of beans, for example, white beans I'm normally eating, they're costing 69 cents, at least where I'm living in Austria. 69 cents for even more than half a kilo of canned beans, and I do think one can is having around 35, it depends on where you're buying them. I think the protein content ranges from 33 to 38-ish or 35, something like that. So it is actually quite high. It is actually all that you need for one meal, because if it is more, then you probably can't absorb all of it, so you're gonna just urinate a lot of protein out again, just because your body can only absorb so much as it can absorb, which is also something to think about when it comes to timing and consumption and whatnot. That, okay, if I'm eating just one massive steak, does it make sense to really eat the whole one just in one sitting? Or should I actually eat half of it and then half of it an hour later, 2 hours later, something like that? I don't really know. I'm not that knowledgeable in this particular space. I know that there is some upper limit of how much your body can absorb in one sitting, but I don't know, the time in between could be, I do actually think it is 2 hours or something, but I'm not quite sure about that. So canned goods, which means beans, lentils, everything that is having a relatively high protein content. The only thing that I've seen is that kidney beans, for example, they normally are sugared. And I don't want to eat something that is sugared or has added sugar in it. Whatever it is, I'm not eating that just because I don't think that is healthy. And I think it is also unnecessary just because it is just really upping the carbohydrate content of the product itself then. And also corn is actually pretty nice, when it comes to protein per se. And I've also read, and my brother told me, that kidney beans combined with corn add up to just all the amino acids that you kind of need. Apparently, I haven't really checked it. I've read it once since then, because I was looking it up, but I do think that I need to kind of do a little bit more research there. The only problem that I'm having with canned goods is that if you're not really into beans and lentils and all of these things, then there's probably nothing for you. And second of all, the sodium and salt content is very, very, very high. One of the just ways to get around that is rinsing everything and also washing it with water. I am not always able to do so. And today I've actually been eating 2 cans of half a kilo beans, white beans, and I've nearly thrown up after the second one just because of the salt content. It was so high, and this fluid, so this salty fluid the beans are swimming in, was a bit thicker than normally, so I wasn't able to just really get everything out. And also I normally just push it out of the can by just slightly opening it so that the beans don't come out and just rinsing it through. But as I said, using water and washing the beans actually, or the lentils or whatever you're eating, makes more sense, so to really reduce the amount of sodium that you're eating, especially because I think 2 cans add up to the total amount of salt that you should actually need or eat in a day. And of course, you're not only going to eat beans, I guess. And so something to really, really think about. But they are fucking inexpensive, which is amazing, which really is amazing. And the good thing as well is that you can eat them on a go. If you're just somewhere and you don't really know what to eat and you need something that's relatively high in protein, cheap, and also really a lot, and is having actually relatively low calories, then go for some canned goods. It's actually fucking amazing. Half a kilo is having, I think 1 can is around 480 calories for half a kilo. Eating half a kilo and you're gonna be satiated quite well. And you can actually eat 4 fucking of them, just as a man. 2,000 calories. The stuff. But yeah, of course, add some vinegar, add some pepper, add some whatever. Don't salt it even more. Not a good idea. But or some curry or whatever herb you want to also have, or spice. It's gonna taste way better. But of course, if I'm, for example, on the go, I'm always buying them just because it really fits in my macros, and it's cheap and it is quite a lot. So I'm also gonna be satiated. Something else that I can say is a pretty cool thing is tofu. I think it also is working really well. For me, at least, and I don't know, like some people might not be able to eat it because of the soy and whatnot, but I mean, there is one that's costing $2 for 300 grams, which is also quite something. It's not that satiating as the beans are, but yeah, and it's also higher in fats, something to also consider. But it is having like, I think 50 grams of protein in the whole thing, which is pretty amazing, which really is pretty amazing. And these are, for example, examples for things that you can eat on the go, that are very inexpensive, actually. Tofu, it depends on what you're comparing it with, of course. But I would actually say, some beans with corn, whether it's just white beans or black beans, which are not available in Austria as a canned good, and or kidney beans. I think all of them really taste well with some corn, maybe some vinegar. Maybe you just have something sitting around. Maybe you put some vinegar into your car or whatever, so that you have always access to that. But very cheap, quite a lot of food. And you can also store it in wherever just you're sitting and whatnot, which is also a pretty cool thing. And as I said, the only thing to look out for is the salt content. And so wash it. Tofu, as I said, is also a pretty cool thing. And soy products in general, they tend to be relatively low in costs, but very, very high in protein, which is amazing. And actually also pretty nice, you know, but you also have to just really validate that you can eat them just not rehydrated, because some goods you have to rehydrate and or uncooked. You know, tofu, as I've seen, you can eat it uncooked. I've done that. I'm fine with it. At least for me, it is working. Maybe for some of you, it is not quite working because, yeah, you know, it is soy and raw soy and whatnot. Maybe it's just not something that your body can handle and or your stomach can handle. Of course, there's different types of breads that are very, very cheap. Actually, some, I don't know what it is called. Is it no barley is the other thing? It's this really dark grain. You know, it's not wheat, but it's the other very popular one. It's also not splint, I think it is called. But yeah, and there are also some breads that are very, very cheap, but the salt content of them is also relatively high, like really, really high, like 2-3 grams per 100 grams, and just buying one package is 500 grams. Of course, you're maybe not gonna eat the whole one, at least not in a sitting, but maybe throughout the day, which then really adds up, I would say. And I think the maximum amount of 6 grams per day for a healthy human being. You know, of course, for an adult, I don't know if just men and women, if there's a difference, probably there is, but I just don't know. This is also one, and of course there's also some protein breads, which are also pretty fine, but I tend to get heartburn from them, which is not that of an amazing thing, which I've, by the way, also gone today, I think because of the salt content, you know, because it was so high. Then of course fruits and veggies and salads, they tend to be a little bit more expensive, but healthy and nice and amazing. But also the canned ones, you know, they are just cheaper, but you always have to just have a look at the ingredients, because most often, and quite often, for example, peas and carrots, they are sugared. I don't actually know why. It pisses me off because I really enjoy peas. I like to eat some more peas because the protein content is also relatively high, and you know, they just taste pretty well, at least for me. And yeah, you know, this is something that I think about. But yeah, of course, there's also some other protein products, like some protein bars, but most often it is, at least at my point of view, only some weird chemical shit put together, and I don't actually enjoy that much. You know, I haven't eaten one, I think, ever, but they're also relatively expensive compared to what you can get in terms of amount of food, in terms of, well, quality, not necessarily, but amount, and probably also the same macronutrients or nutrients in general, maybe even better, you know, if you're going for just some, I don't know, some veggies and some fruits, and yeah, pretty amazing. And something also to consider is just, I don't know, just buying the cheap one, not buying the branded one, but buying the cheap one, which relatively often is just way too much, you know, that it is more and even cheaper than the just medium or small package. But I don't know, go for it and then just share and whatnot, or just keep it for the next time. But yeah, but sometimes it is actually the case that in relation to the size, it is cheaper, but in total it is not cheaper as a smaller product. And then going for the bigger product just doesn't make any sense, you know, because you're paying more for something that you actually don't need, which is always something to think about. Okay, of course, you know, the relation of price and what you get for it is better than the cheaper but lower amount version, but you just don't need more, you know. It's quite unnecessary, and it is a waste of money. And if you then throw something away, then it is just essentially just unnecessary, quite. So also something to keep in mind and that I've seen. Another way would actually kind of be just cooking doing something and then eating it on a go and just taking it with you. But I just don't relatively like that, or don't really like that. And I feel like that I'm also not having the time, and or I don't want to spare out the time on my weekends or whenever I have the time for actually doing that. But of course, then in relation, like uncooked beans and uncooked whatever, lentils, for example, are very, 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 very cheap compared to the canned ones. I think even a bit cheaper than the canned ones. They are cheap in general, but even cheaper, I think, than the canned ones. I just don't have the numbers in my mind. If this really is the case, could be, but yeah, I don't necessarily know, or I don't really know. But yeah, I think this is these are some tips. Maybe you can get something out of it. I've been living in that way for quite some time actually, and I'm always figuring out new stuff on how to be even cheaper, but still having like the quality of food and still being healthy and still still getting everything you need, and also just going for your bodybuilding / healthy looking goals. But yeah, with that being said, I'm gonna end the episode. So I wish the best health, of happiness, and all success, and also hope that you're gonna remind yourself and you're gonna be remembered. Basically means your legacy, basically means just being a nice person, and being remembered as a nice person, which is a pretty fucking cool thing. 3 other questions that I have you are: why are you here? What are you trying to change, and what is bothering you the most? These 3 questions. I hopefully gonna show you your purpose and maybe even a business idea, which is a pretty fucking cool thing. One last thing is, what could you essentially say to another person that is indeed gonna change their life? Because I totally believe that we all can say something. And with that being said, I'm gonna see you the next time. Bye bye.